Picture this. You're trapped in a maze with flames licking at your heels and someone's deliberately blocking your only way out. That's exactly how I felt when I uncovered my neighbor Vanessa's scheme to siphon electricity from my backyard outlet to fuel her sleek $90,000 electric car, jacking up my bill by $400 a month. But hold on, don't turn away yet. The way my custom-built power protection system turned her prized vehicle into a glorified paperweight is a story so satisfying, it'll leave you grinning. Drop a comment about where you're tuning in from. I bet some of you are sneaking this while pretending to work. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. This tale is worth every second. Let me set the stage. They say good neighbors are worth their weight in gold, but no fence is high enough to keep out someone who thinks the world owes them a free ride. I grew up in a tight-knit, working-class town in the Northeast, where respecting boundaries was as natural as breathing. Apparently, that memo never reached certain luxury car-driving folks with a knack for dodging their own bills. What follows isn't just a story of stolen watts, it's a masterclass in consequences I'm still pretty proud of. As my old man used to say, the best way to teach a thief is to let them trip over their own greed. My name's Lucas Carter, a 38-year-old electrical engineer working remotely for a green energy firm in Boston. I cut my teeth in the Navy, spending 8 years designing power systems for ships before settling into civilian life. The military drilled into me discipline, precision, and a knack for solving problems under pressure. Skills that, as it turns out, are just as useful in suburban showdowns as they are on a destroyer. I've been living in Cedar Hollow, a cozy little community in upstate New York, for 4 years. It's the kind of place with neat lawns, friendly block parties, and a homeowners association that usually sticks to fussing over flower beds. I bought my house after a quiet divorce. Just 2 people parting ways, no drama. Life was calm, predictable, until Vanessa Langston rolled into town like a storm cloud in yoga pants. Vanessa arrived in a gleaming silver electric SUV, her house a former fixer-upper that she'd transformed into a modernist mansion with floor-to-ceiling windows and a Zen garden that screamed, "I paid too much for this." I should have caught the red flags when the previous owners practically sprinted out of town, selling their place at a loss with some flimsy excuse about a job transfer. Now I suspect they were fleeing Vanessa's incoming reign of terror. I met her when I dropped off a welcome gift: some local cider, maple candies, and a neighborhood guide. I'm no extrovert, but my mum raised me to be neighborly. Vanessa accepted the basket with a smile, as warm as a January gust, her eyes scanning me like I was a delivery driver who'd wandered too far from the porch. She was decked out in designer athleisure. Think leggings that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and enough bling to blind a magpie. She gave me a quick tour of her curated home, tossing around words like bespoke and artisanal as if they were confetti. Her kitchen boasted a countertop imported from Spain, and she made sure I knew her husband Richard, a top-tier financial consultant, had spared no expense. She mentioned his job 4 times in 10 minutes, each time with a smug little tilt of her head. When she asked about my cute little place, her tone suggested I lived in a shed. Learning I was an engineer barely registered a flicker of interest. Unless you were a CEO or a celebrity, you weren't worth her time. That first meeting was a warning flare I naively ignored. Within weeks, Vanessa launched a full-scale takeover of the Cedar Hollow HOA. Armed with charm, veiled threats, and lavish cocktail parties, she wormed her way onto the board, ousting the longtime treasurer, a sweet retiree named Clara, who resigned after Vanessa dug up dirt on her daughter's old shoplifting charge. By month 2, Vanessa was HOA secretary, her influence spreading like ivy. I kept my head down, focused on work and the occasional online gaming session with buddies. HOA drama wasn't my scene. Pay my dues, mow my lawn, live and let live. That is, until my electric bill hit like a sucker punch. $550, triple my usual $180. I called the utility company, suspecting a glitch, but they confirmed the reading. I scoured my house for culprits, faulty fridge, rogue space heater, nothing. My neighbors, an elderly couple named the Millers, mentioned their bill hadn't budged, so this was my problem alone. The truth hit at 3 a.m. when my security camera pinged my phone. There, in glorious high definition, was Vanessa, draped in a silk kimono, sneaking across my yard with an extension cord. She plugged it into my outdoor outlet, the one I use for holiday lights, and ran it to her car. Parked strategically behind a row of azaleas she'd pushed the HOA to plant for curb app. I watched, jaw on the floor, as she double-checked her setup and tiptoed back home like a cat burglar with a manicure. The next morning, I marched to her door, video ready. She answered in a tennis skirt, all smiles, until I said, "We need to talk about you stealing my electricity." Her grin froze. "I have no clue what you mean, Lucas," she said, laughing it off. I showed her the footage, and her face turned to stone. "That could be anyone," she snapped, despite her distinctive kimono being unmistakable. "Maybe your wiring's faulty. You should upgrade if you're worried about bills. Property values matter in Cedar Hollow." Before shutting the door, she added, "As HOA secretary, I could bring up your overgrown shrubs. They're 3 inches too tall." I knew this was war. I slapped lockboxes on my outlets and added more cameras, only to get an HOA violation notice 2 days later. Lockboxes were unsightly. The notice came from Harold, the HOA's rule-obsessed enforcer, but Vanessa's fingerprints were all over it. Harold, a former accountant with a chip on his shoulder, showed up to supervise as I removed the locks, ignoring my evidence of theft. "Neighbor disputes aren't my job," he said, though I noticed his new leather loafers and caught a whiff of cologne that screamed, "Vanessa's appreciation brunch." I crashed the next HOA meeting, armed with printouts and a plan. The community center was packed, the air thick with tension. When I tried to raise the issue, Vanessa cut me off with parliamentary precision. Personal matters require written submission. The HOA president, a frazzled dentist named Paul, backed her up, too overwhelmed to argue. Then came her coup de grace, a proposal for community EV charging stations, conveniently located near her house, with costs split across all residents' dues. The plan was slick. Vanessa would get free charging, and we'd all foot the bill. I teamed up with Ellen, a 70-year-old widow who knew every secret in Cedar Hollow, and Mark and Jenny Ruiz, a couple stretched thin by rising HOA fees. Ellen's intel revealed Vanessa's pattern of bullying board members into submission, while the Ruizes rallied neighbors worried about costs. I installed a power monitor to track Vanessa's theft, 80 kilowatt-hours nightly, costing me a fortune. We gathered signatures from 20 households opposing the charges without individual meters. The night before the next meeting, Ellen called. "They've delayed it. Some nonsense about a broken projector. I saw Vanessa's car at Paul's house. She's plotting." Sure enough, Vanessa was schmoozing board members, and I realized playing by her rules was a losing game. It was time to fight like an engineer. I gave Vanessa one last chance, showing up at her house with a binder of evidence. Richard answered, distracted and dismissive in a suit that cost more than my car. He barely glanced at the proof, calling it a few bucks, not worth the fuss, then rushed off for a call with London. Vanessa wasn't home, but when she heard I'd spoken to Richard, she stormed over, livid. "You'll regret crossing me," she hissed. "Richard's firm has connections. One call, and your job's toast. One whisper about your Navy days, and you're the neighborhood creep." Rumors spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I was an unhinged veteran, stalking Vanessa's property. Neighbors avoided me. Support dwindled. Vanessa upped the ante, pushing through landscaping upgrades near my house that added noise and fees. I retreated to my workshop, where I designed a Smart Power Guardian (SPG), a legal industrial-grade device to detect and block unauthorized power use. It featured warning lights, audible alerts, and a voltage fluctuation to deter thieves, all compliant with electrical codes. I installed it with a glowing warning sign. Protected by SPG. Unauthorized use may damage devices. Vanessa scoffed at the setup, triggering another violation notice for excessive signage. But county law required the warning, so it stayed. She briefly backed off, testing other outlets, only to push through emergency high-capacity chargers in the common area, again at community expense. That night, my cameras caught her plugging in, flipping off my lens with a smirk. The SPG logged her drawing $600 a month in power, billed to us all. The night before the rescheduled HOA meeting, Vanessa plugged in at 1 a.m., cranking her car to max charge. The SPG's warnings flashed and beeped. She ignored them, upping the draw defiantly. The system did its job. After 3 warnings, it sent a controlled fluctuation and cut power. Her car's screen lit up with errors. By morning, she was at my door, screaming about her bricked SUV, demanding $25,000 for repairs. I calmly showed her the SPG's specs and footage of her ignoring warnings. Richard arrived, skimmed the docs, and realized she'd screwed herself. "You saw the warnings and did what?" he muttered, dragging her home. The HOA meeting was a spectacle. Every seat was taken, neighbors buzzing with gossip. Ellen handed out a dossier of Vanessa's financial shenanigans, while I presented videos, data, and cost breakdowns. Vanessa's $500 monthly theft had inflated everyone's dues. When I showed her ignoring the SPG's warnings, the room erupted. Mark Ruiz spoke up. "We cut our daughter's dance classes to pay these fees. You're charging your car on our dime?" Others chimed in, their frustration boiling over. Vanessa's defense crumbled. Ellen moved to oust her from the board, demand $8,000 in restitution, and hold new elections. The vote was a landslide. Vanessa and Richard listed their house at a loss and fled to a private community in Connecticut. Harold quit, Paul retired early, and Mark became board president, ushering in transparent rules and metered charges I helped design. Today, Cedar Hollow hums with community spirit. Ellen's garden blooms, the Ruiz's daughter dances again, and my new neighbors, a teacher and a chef, are the kind who share homemade cookies. Vanessa's old charging spot now hosts a fair metered station. She could have had it all if she'd played straight. Instead, her greed cost her $25,000 in repairs, $8,000 in fines, and a hasty exit. As Ellen put it, "Karma's got perfect aim, no GPS required." This isn't just my win, it's Cedar Hollow's. We learned that bullies only thrive when good people stay quiet. And trust me, a little engineering know-how can spark justice in ways a Karen will never see coming.